Before France fell, its navy still stood tall, sharp, and confident. These warships were not built in panic or retreat. They were designed in an era when France expected to fight, hold ground, and control the sea. Steel was laid with purpose. Guns were mounted with pride. Crews trained believing their ships would decide battles, not flee from them. Then history turned fast and collapsed everything in France. This video isn't about surrender. It's about the French warships that existed before the collapse, when power, ambition, and danger still sailed side by side. Richelieu, all right. Imagine a warship launched into chaos before it ever learned how to breathe. Richelieu entered the world late, hurried, and already under pressure. She was laid down in 1935 and rushed into service by April 1940, while Europe cracked apart. Her escape to Dakar wasn't a strategy, it was survival. Everything about her design spoke of confidence that history refused to honor. Two massive quadruple 380mm turrets were pushed forward, not for style, but to compress armor protection and keep weight disciplined. She wasn't meant to guard harbors. She was built to move, hit, and endure punishment. British shells damaged her during the Dakar fighting, freezing her early promise in place. Then the story bent again. By late 1942, she crossed political lines, and in New York, American hands rebuilt her from the inside out during 1943. Steel stayed French. Purpose evolved. Power remained unmistakable. Dunkirk well, in simple terms, this ship was France refusing to be outpaced. Dunkirk wasn't born from tradition. She was a direct reply to German pocket battleships, faster, sharper, and unapologetically aggressive. Construction began in 1932, and by 1937, she was already testing the limits of what speed and armor could coexist. Her entire personality sat forward, 8 330mm guns concentrated ahead, meant to chase, dictate range, and finish fights on French terms. Nearly 30 knots came standard, backed by serious protection for a ship that refused to stand still. She had the legs to stay at sea and the discipline to fight selectively. War didn't reward her design philosophy. Politics boxed her in. After the Vichy period, escape was closed off completely. At Toulon, in November 1942, her crew chose steel over surrender and sent her to the bottom themselves. Speed couldn't outrun history. Strasbourg. Can you believe survival became her most defining weapon? Strasbourg entered service in 1938, sleek, fast, and built to stand beside Dunkirk rather than behind her. When British guns thundered at Mers el-Kébir, chaos ruled the harbor, yet Strasbourg did something no blueprint could guarantee. She broke free. Through smoke and collapsing formations, she ran, engines screaming, and reached Toulon intact. That escape turned her into something symbolic, a moving reminder that French naval strength hadn't vanished overnight. On paper, she carried 8 330mm guns, aircraft facilities, layered protection, and nearly 30 knots of speed. In reality, she carried expectation. But symbols don't age well under occupation. By November 1942, German troops closed in, and Strasbourg's story ended the same way many proud hulls did. She was scuttled deliberately, refloated later, judged beyond saving, and dismantled quietly. She survived battle only to be erased by circumstance. Algerie. As the name quietly suggests, balance was her entire philosophy. Algerie wasn't chasing headlines or raw speed. She was built to endure. Ordered in 1930 and completed by 1934, she represented the most refined answer France gave to treaty restrictions. Armor actually mattered here. A real belt protected her vitals, not symbolic plating. while 8 203mm guns offered dependable striking power without excess. Early in the war, she worked the long, thankless missions, patrols, trade route security, hunting threats that never announced themselves. Nothing glamorous, just responsibility. Then the political ceiling collapsed. Vichy control trapped her in harbor, ambition rusting alongside the hull. When German forces moved to seize the fleet in November 1942, Algeria never gave them the satisfaction. She was scuttled at Toulon with precision and intent, denied to everyone. No dramatic last stand, no redemption arc, just a cruiser built carefully, used briefly, and ended decisively. Le Fantasque. And here comes a ship that simply refused moderation. Le Fantasque wasn't designed to escort politely. She was built to outrun logic. Created to counter Italian speed threats, this class pushed machinery to absurd extremes, with trial runs exceeding 45 knots, numbers that embarrassed most destroyers worldwide. Her hull stretched long and lean, displacing far more than typical escorts, built to operate alongside heavy units rather than trail behind them. That speed came at a price. Light construction demanded constant attention, turbines ran hot, and maintenance followed her like a shadow. In wartime reality, she wasn't chasing glory. Screening duties, smoke deployment, patrols, and rapid response tasks defined her days, often complicated by shifting allegiances between Vichy and Free French control. Le Fantasque wasn't comfortable. She wasn't forgiving. She was fast because she had to be, sharp because hesitation killed, and remembered because few ships ever dared to move that quickly on open water. Surcouf. Can you believe France built a submarine that wanted to be a surface raider first and a stealth hunter second? Surcouf was enormous for her day, so big she held the largest submarine title until Japan rolled out the later I-400 class. That size wasn't vanity, it was a mission statement. She was shaped for long-range roaming, packing heavy gun armament for a submarine and the endurance to operate far from friendly ports, the kind of design that turns open water into a guessing game. It also meant complexity. Pressure hull demands mixed with surface-style firepower, a difficult marriage of steel, space, and engineering headaches. Her real battlefield effect wasn't escort duty or neat fleet work. She existed to unsettle shipping lanes and force opponents to waste time, fuel, and escorts on a threat that might not even be there. Then the story cuts off cold. Surcouf vanished in the Caribbean on the night of February 18th-19th, 1942, with a collision often suspected but never proven. And for now, let's move to Jean Bar All Right. This is what it looks like when a battleship gets dragged into war before it's even finished dressing. Jean Bar was laid down on 12th of December 1936, launched on 6th March 1940, and then shoved out of Saint-Nazaire during the collapse, fleeing to Casablanca still incomplete. That's not deployment, that's escape with a hull. Yet she still threw weight around. In November 1942, during the naval battle of Casablanca, the American battleship Massachusetts engaged her in harbor and damaged her, proof that even unfinished, Jean Bart couldn't be ignored. The planned shape behind the chaos was lethal: 8 380mm guns, heavy armor, modern Parsons turbines, and a design speed around 32 knots, basically France trying to keep a true fast battleship alive on paper and in steel. The frustrating part is cost. Clean construction figures in francs aren't consistently published in the sources people can actually verify. But the intent is undeniable. She was built to be a centerpiece, not a footnote. Britannia. What you're looking at here is old power still trying to matter in a new war. Britannia was ordered on 1st May 1912 laid down on 22 July 1912, launched on 21 April 1913, and commissioned 10 February 1916, pure First World War muscle that France kept afloat because hulls and guns still counted in 1940. She displaced about 23,936 tons in normal condition, topped out around 20.6 knots, and carried 340 mm main guns that once looked unstoppable. Then Mirz el-Kebir happened. On 3 July 1940, during Operation Catapult, British fire struck the anchored French squadron, and Bretagne took the kind of hit no old battleship can forgive. She capsized and sank, becoming the battleship lost in that attack. While total French deaths across the action reached roughly 1,297. Bretagne never got a clean cinematic duel. Her role became harsher, a reminder that political panic can kill faster than enemy strategy, and that steel built decades earlier still holds living crews inside it. Béarn. As the name tells the story, Béarn wasn't a sleek strike carrier. She was a compromise that stumbled into a strange kind of importance. Commissioned in 1928, after conversion from a battleship hull, she entered WWII already slow and outclassed, which is exactly why her most valuable mission had nothing to do with launching air raids. In late May 1940, she carried French gold meant to pay for aircraft purchases in the United States, basically turning an awkward carrier into a floating vault. After the armistice, she was diverted to Martinique and stayed there for years, sitting under the pressure and scrutiny of the United States to prevent her from slipping into Axis hands. That's a different kind of battlefield role: politics and logistics instead of bombs and torpedoes. She served more as a transport and training utility than as a frontline aviation weapon, and that limitation actually kept her alive. Béarn didn't win fights by striking first. She mattered because she held resources and prevented outcomes. Montcalm Power told its story in Montcalm through persistence, not flash. Laid down on 15 November 1933, launched 26 October 1935, and commissioned 15 November 1937, she belonged to the La Galissonière family. Cruisers praised for being fast, steady, and well-balanced rather than fragile showpieces. Early wartime service sat under Vichy restraint, which meant capability without freedom. The real change arrived in the United States. During a refit at Philadelphia from February to August 1943, engines were overhauled, aircraft arrangements were removed, and anti-aircraft defenses were modernized, turning her into a tougher, more practical fighting ship for the later war. After that, Montcalm's work leaned into the grind, escorting, supporting operations, and hammering shore positions when needed, the kind of contribution that never looks glamorous on a poster but wins campaigns in the background. She wasn't built to hunt for one famous duel. She was built to keep showing up, and she did. Georges Legges. Think of a cruiser that learned patience before it learned combat. Georges Legges entered service as a symbol ship. Polished and proud, then spent early war years constrained by Vichy orders that limited action but not readiness. Everything pivoted after North Africa in November 1942. Freed from political restraint, she shifted roles without complaint, crossing into Allied service alongside her sister ships. An American refit in 1943 stripped away aircraft fittings and rebuilt her defenses, replacing display with utility. From there, her guns spoke often and steadily. Normandy, Dragoon, long escort runs, bombardments that demanded accuracy rather than drama. This cruiser became dependable muscle rather than headline news. Speed and balance from the La Galissonière design kept her relevant, while heavier ships struggled to adapt. Crews respected her because she kept returning from missions intact, ready, and calm. when wars stretch longer than anyone expects. Émile Bertin. All right, picture a ship built around urgency rather than tradition. Émile Bertin existed to arrive first, act fast, and disappear before trouble settled in. Her role shaped everything: leading destroyer groups, laying mines, reacting quickly when plans collapsed. Speed and agility mattered more than brute armor, and the design reflected that mindset. Triple gun mountings marked a shift in French thinking, influencing later cruiser layouts and proving that compact firepower could still feel decisive. She wasn't meant to dominate oceans or anchor fleets. Instead, she filled gaps, solved problems, and handled missions others weren't built for. That flexibility kept her useful when alliances shifted and doctrines cracked. Records talk more about what she did than what she cost. And that feels fitting. Émile Bertin measured value in response time, not price tags. She was the knife drawn when situations turned tight, fast, and unpredictable, where hesitation cost more than steel ever could. Mogador enemies turned their attention fast whenever Mogador appeared, because nothing about her felt cautious. She was laid down in late 1934 and commissioned just before the war, carrying the ambition of a navy trying to outrun its limits. 838.6mm guns pushed her firepower close to cruiser territory, while a design speed near 39 knots demanded machinery pushed hard and often. Built to scout ahead of fast capital ships, Mogador traded comfort for performance and accepted the risks that came with it. Those risks showed themselves brutally at Mers el-Kébir in July 1940, when a catastrophic hit wrecked her stern and removed her from immediate usefulness. Recovery followed, but fate waited. By the time German forces moved on Toulon in 1942, Mogador's story ended with deliberate scuttling rather than capture. She wasn't subtle. Lorraine Power told its story differently with Lorraine, slower, but no less stubborn. Designed as a dreadnought and commissioned long before WWII, she carried heavy steel, thick armor, and expectations shaped by earlier wars. Internment at Alexandria sidelined her early stripping weapons and momentum alike. Then came the decision point. In December 1942, her crew chose the Allied path, returning Lorraine to relevance when few expected it. She wasn't fast, about 20 knots on her best days, and she wasn't modern by design, but she was reliable. That mattered during Operation Dragoon in 1944, where her guns supported landings, and again in 1945 while bombarding German positions near La Rochelle. Refits added anti-aircraft defenses and radar, stretching the usefulness of old steel rather than replacing it. Lorraine didn't redefine naval combat. She demonstrated that even aging battleships can matter when crews and purpose realign at the right moment. Casabianca. And here comes a ship that escaped history's trap by slipping beneath it. Casabianca didn't hesitate at Toulon in November 1942. While others scuttled, she ran. That single decision transformed her from another hull into a moving problem for occupying forces. Once clear, she became something more personal than a weapon. During the liberation of Corsica in 1943, Casabianca carried agents, weapons, and supplies, threading danger quietly between coastlines and resistance cells. Torpedoes mattered less than timing. Silence mattered more than speed. Each mission carried human weight, names, lives, and consequences packed into steel corridors below the surface. Her role was never about fleet actions or dramatic sinkings. It was about access. Casabianca proved that submarines could shape outcomes without firing a shot, simply by connecting people who were never meant to meet. French naval power didn't vanish underwater. In this case, it resurfaced sharper, closer, and far more personal. So, that's all for today. If you like this video, then tell us what you think about these classic beasts, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching and staying with us.